Hello everyone, welcome to Code with Srini. In this lecture, we are going to add more form controls. This is part 2 of the reactive form lecture. In this lecture, let's add some more form controls and interact with this behavior, right? From the last lecture, we have seen how we are adding the form controls to our reactive form, but this information is really not enough to extend our expense management system. We need things like particulars, quantities, rates per unit, units, and finally the amount that you will be needing, that you are spending. For example, if you buy a piece of butter which will be 250 grams and you have bought 2 butters, so the quantity will come to 2 and then your rate per unit will be something like 140 rupees or something, and then the units, for example, if it is grams, then 250 it will be 250 grams, and then finally the amount should be updated based on the units, quantity and the rates. Right, let's jump in. So before that, I made minor modifications to our previous application. I went ahead and added units for our application, which is inside the assets, which is called units.json, and it's a simple a mock data for unit with a key value pair which has a name as a kilogram and value as kg. And similarly, I have a list of units that we can make use in our application, in our component. It's just an array of units. I'm going to close this. We'll be making use of them in our expense service. I created an expense service which is in short, I created using ng generate service and then the expense service. And I created a method for get units where I will be returning the assets here, right? So whenever I call them in any of the components, I will be getting the units that I need, the list of units, the whole units. Okay, so we can close this for now, and then our units are ready. Only thing that matters is we need to add templates and bind them to our reactive form. So for adding a template, obviously we need to go into the add edit build component that we have been using for. I'm going to just copy the entire thing and make a new row. Of course, you'll be getting a lot of errors. Just don't mind them for now, right? This will be start of a new row. Let's call them particulars, and the shop name, rename them to particulars. Okay. You can have any name you want, but I just made it as a particular because most of the build that I have seen have the name as a particular, so that's why I'm sticking with this convention. Doesn't matter, you can have it as items or you can have it as article or anything that you might wish. And the placeholder, I can name it as item purchased. Okay, so we purchased an item. Let's say we purchased a chicken. We can type it as a live chicken in that, and then the next bit is quantity. So this one will be of column 6. It should be a large field and we don't need a comment. Just jump straight in with our code. And we can have column of 1 for instead of date, this should be quantity. Yeah, quantity comes as first is good, and name should be quantity. I'm just cascade the okay, and we don't need this date picker stuff. We will be eventually binding this to our reactive form in the class, or else this will never work. We need to bind the template with our expense form class field. And the bill number, we need to remove the bill number. This is column 1 of size of column 1, the quantity. Yeah, it will be a smallest one, and this will be of I don't know, unit should be column 2. Let's say column 2, and let's call them as unit. This is not a text field, so this should be a select field. It should be a mat select. So mat select, and then the mat select will have mat option. Okay, so the select field will have a form control name. The form control name will have the name of the form that we are using, which will be unit, and the mat option will have the iteration. This is the one that you have seen here. So it will have name and a value, key value pair. So we're going to make use of them. We're going to iterate them. So ng4 equals, and the ng4, so let u of units. We will be passing the value of units from app component. So this value will hold the actual value of our units, and this will have the name. It's obvious, u.name. Okay, now our mat select is completed, and we have quantity, we have rates, we have units, and we need a rate for that quantity. So let's call it as rate, or in short rate per unit, pu, or rate/unit. That will do good. And in here it should be rate per unit. I made a mistake. Let me correct that one. So the name and the form control as a rate per unit, and then the quantity as an extra mat date picker, which shouldn't be there. And yeah, for everything we need a placeholder or something. unit. Okay, so I think you will be getting an error for the units field. It'll be saying something regarding the units. Let's see. Okay, we have an issue with our div tag. Exactly right. And okay, now we are getting issue with our units. So we didn't pass units information to our app, so it never knows, right? For that we need to go to app component and then call the units. So units of any equals empty array, and in here we need ng on init, and we need to call the expense management. When we need to call the expense service we already created earlier, but we forgot to add the expense service in our providers, so let's add them first. So once we add them in the app module, it will be ready for our app component to be included. So private expense service. Okay, so this we'll be getting the service, and we can get all the units in the ng on init. So this way we can get all our units here and it'll be ready. Now before going further, instead of using any as our type, we can go ahead and create our own type. So it's in the shared, and we can create a folder called models, and I'm going to create an interface called expense. So the expense interface will have both interface unit. So this will hold all the information about the type, the shape of our object. So its name as a string and value as a string. Okay, so we have the shape of our object, which is an interface, and we can make use of them. Instead of any, we can call it as unit, which is pointing to our models and expense, and we can do the same to our subscription. So the data is obviously an array of unit. So this will be good for now. Let's close up the expense and expense service. Let's have only the app component, but still we will be getting the units error here. We need to pass the unit to our build component. Angular Material provides an extra property called data, and in there you can just type in the data that you want to send, and then that's done. And in the receiving end, which is the add build component TS, we need to capture that information over here. So Angular Material gives you an option of something called inject mat dialog data. So something like in the constructor you can declare a variable and capture the data, using the dependency injection mat dialog data. Let's have this as a public because we might use them in the templates as well. So let's keep them public, and the shape of the data is units, which is of units. We need to call them, right? We need to add them. So this will do for now, and we need to add the mat dialog data and the units. Sorry, it's a unit from our model. Okay, let's leave a space a little bit. Now the unit issue still not solved, but we need to define our unit here. Similarly in the app component, ideally these should be units, right? So let's change that later because collection of unit is units. So I made a mistake here. So we should be having units instead of unit. Let's do a quick data check. If you're getting units in our if you're getting units from the app component, only then we're going to assign them the units from the data. Otherwise just leave it blank. Now this should be resolved. Yes, we are free of errors, and the app doesn't work because we need to add HTTP module to our app component. So it should be somewhere here, client module. We don't need the HTTP client. The application runs, but we are having issue with our form controls. Basically we need to add them, we need to bind them to our reactive form. Now let's get started with the binding process. We have shop name, bill name. Let's do some ascending. Let's arrange them in ascending order. The shop name should go below. The amount should come as a first item. Bill number is second. Bill settled. Yes, we have one more item called bill settled. We need to add a template for them. Now let's first complete this. Purchase date is fine. Purchase date is basically the date of purchase, and particular. Sorry, it's a particular. So it's the purchase date, particular, and we have quantity, unit, rate per unit, and I think that's it. The quantity should be at the bottom, unit should be at the bottommost. Now it's fine. Let's check in the component. Looks good, except it's not expected. We didn't expect them to look like this. Should be in a row wise. That's because we did not add a class row, so that's what we are getting an alignment issue. This should be working now. Yeah, it works, but we missed the amount. Okay, let's add the amount. Okay, so the amount field will be there, and we also need one more item, which is the bill settle. Now let's So we'll do one thing. Let's skip that one for now, and then we'll focus on the current form controls. So yeah, we have items purchased, quantities, and everything is there. Everything is fine. Thanks a lot for watching Code with Srini. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up and share. See you soon on the next lecture. Stay tuned. Bye bye.